The quiet panic. This is something that's been eating away at me for months now, and I finally decided I had to share it with someone. What I'm about to tell you sounds absolutely insane, and honestly, if someone else told me this story, I probably wouldn't believe them either. But I need you to hear me out, because what's been happening to me defies every logical explanation I can think of. It started 3 months ago on a Tuesday night in October. I remember the exact date because it was the night everything changed. I went to bed like any other night, brushed my teeth, set my alarm for 7 in the morning, and closed my eyes expecting to wake up refreshed for another ordinary day. Instead, I woke up to the most terrifying experience of my entire life. Picture this. You're lying in your bed, completely paralyzed, unable to move a single muscle in your body. The room is pitch black except for this dim red light seeping in from somewhere you can't identify. Your heart is pounding so hard you can hear it echoing in your ears like thunder, and then you hear it, footsteps creaking across the floorboards, getting closer and closer to your bed. You want to scream, you want to run, you want to do anything, but your body won't respond. You're trapped inside your own mind while something approaches you in the darkness. That's exactly what happened to me that first night. The footsteps stopped right next to my bed, and I could feel this presence standing there watching me. I tried everything I could think of to wake myself up, attempting to wiggle my fingers, trying to call out, even focusing all my energy on opening my eyes wider. Nothing worked. I was completely helpless, lying there for what felt like hours while this thing just stood there in the shadows. When I finally did wake up, I was drenched in sweat and shaking uncontrollably. My sheets were soaked through, and I had to get up and change them at 3 in the morning. I told myself it was just a nightmare, maybe brought on by stress from work or something I ate before bed. We've all had those dreams that feel incredibly real, right? The ones where you're convinced you're awake even though you're actually asleep. But here's where things get really messed up. The next night, the exact same thing happened. Same paralysis, same red light, same footsteps, same presence standing next to my bed. And the night after that, and the night after that. For 3 straight months, I've been waking up in this identical nightmare every single night without fail. Now I know what you're thinking. Sleep paralysis is a real medical condition that affects millions of people. I thought the same thing initially, so I did my research. I read every article I could find, watched countless videos, even scheduled an appointment with a sleep specialist. Sleep paralysis occurs when your mind wakes up but your body remains in the paralyzed state of REM sleep. It often comes with hallucinations that can feel absolutely terrifying but are completely harmless. The doctor explained all of this to me in great detail. She told me about the different types of hallucinations people experience. The feeling of an intruder in the room, pressure on the chest, out-of-body sensations. She prescribed me some medication to help regulate my sleep cycles and suggested lifestyle changes like reducing caffeine and maintaining a consistent bedtime routine. I followed every single recommendation she gave me. But the nightmares didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. The presence that stands next to my bed started getting more aggressive. Instead of just watching me, it began reaching out toward me with what I can only describe as impossibly long, thin fingers. I still couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything except lie there and feel those fingers getting closer and closer to my face. Then something happened that completely shattered my understanding of what was going on. During one of these episodes, I managed to focus all my willpower on moving just one finger. It took every ounce of strength I had, but I finally got my index finger to twitch. The moment it moved, the presence immediately stepped back into the shadows and I woke up instantly. That's when I realized this wasn't ordinary sleep paralysis. Whatever was happening to me was responding to my actions. It was reacting to what I was doing, which means it had to be aware of me in some way. Sleep paralysis hallucinations don't work like that. They're products of your own mind, not interactive experiences that change based on your behavior. I started experimenting, trying different things each night to see how this presence would respond. If I managed to move my hand, it would retreat. If I tried to speak and managed to make even the slightest sound, it would disappear completely. But if I lay there completely still and helpless, it would get bolder and bolder, reaching out further and staying longer. The really disturbing part is that I began to recognize details about this thing that remained consistent night after night. The footsteps always had the same rhythm. 3 slow steps, then a pause, then 2 quicker steps before stopping next to my bed. The breathing was always heavy and labored, like someone who had been running. And there was this smell, this awful metallic scent that filled the room whenever it appeared. My sleep specialist was baffled when I described these consistent details to her. She'd never heard of sleep paralysis episodes being so identical and recurring with such precision. She referred me to a colleague who specialized in unusual sleep disorders, but even he couldn't offer any explanation that made sense. That's when I started keeping a journal, documenting every single detail of each episode. The time I went to bed, what I ate that day, my stress levels, the weather, anything that might be relevant. I was desperate to find some pattern or trigger that could explain what was happening to me. After weeks of careful documentation, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The episodes weren't random. They were getting longer each night, and the presence was becoming more solid, more real. In the beginning, it was just a shadow that I could barely make out in the darkness. But as the weeks went by, I started being able to see more details. The outline of a hunched figure, abnormally long arms, and eventually the suggestion of a face that I never wanted to see clearly. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago when I woke up to find scratches on my arm. 3 thin red lines running from my wrist to my elbow, perfectly parallel and definitely not there when I went to sleep. I examined them in the bathroom mirror and they were real. They stung when I touched them, and they left small scabs as they healed over the following days. That's when I knew beyond any doubt that whatever was happening to me wasn't just in my head. You can't get physical injuries from dreams or hallucinations. Something was actually in my room, something that could touch me and leave marks on my body while I lay there paralyzed and helpless. I tried everything I could think of to protect myself. I installed motion sensor lights that would turn on if anything moved in my room. I set up a camera to record what happened while I slept. I even blessed my room with holy water, burning sage, anything that might keep this thing away from me. But here's the most terrifying part of all. None of it worked. The motion sensors never detected anything. The camera showed nothing but me lying motionless in my bed all night long. Even during the episodes where I could clearly see this presence standing right next to me, the camera recorded absolutely nothing unusual. So either this thing exists in some dimension that cameras can't capture, or I'm losing my mind in the most systematic way possible. Both options terrify me equally. Last week, I decided to try something different. Instead of fighting the paralysis or trying to wake myself up, I forced myself to stay calm and really observe what was happening. I know it sounds crazy, but I needed to understand what this thing wanted from me. The presence seemed to sense my change in approach because it started moving differently, more cautiously. That night, instead of just standing there, it actually leaned down toward me. I could feel its breath on my face, cold and stale like air from a tomb. And for the first time in 3 months, I heard it speak. Not with words exactly, but this low rumbling sound that somehow I could understand. It kept repeating the same thing over and over. Come with me. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything except lie there listening to this thing invite me somewhere I definitely didn't want to go. But I stayed still. And that's when something even more disturbing happened. The red light in the room started getting brighter, and I could see that it wasn't coming from any normal source. It was emanating from the presence itself, like it was glowing from within. The next morning, I woke up exhausted but with a strange sense of clarity. I realized that this thing, whatever it was, had been trying to communicate with me from the very beginning. The consistent footsteps, the predictable behavior, even the way it responded to my movements. It was all attempts at interaction. I started researching cases similar to mine, diving deep into forums and medical journals looking for anyone who had experienced something even remotely comparable. What I found made me question everything I thought I knew about reality. There were dozens of people describing almost identical experiences, the same paralysis, the same red light, the same presence that grew stronger over time. But here's what really got my attention. Every single person who posted about these experiences eventually stopped updating their accounts. Their last posts were always the same. They mentioned the presence finally speaking to them, asking them to come along. After that, radio silence. No follow-up posts, no explanations, nothing. I tried reaching out to some of these people directly, but their email addresses were inactive. Their social media accounts deleted. It was like they had simply vanished from the internet entirely. The thought that I might be heading toward the same fate kept me awake during the day, which only made the nighttime episodes more intense. 3 nights ago, the presence did something it had never done before. Instead of just standing next to my bed, it actually touched me. I felt its hand, ice cold and impossibly thin, rest on my forehead. The moment it made contact, I was flooded with images that weren't my own memories. I saw a long, dark corridor stretching endlessly in both directions. I saw other people walking down this corridor, all of them moving in the same slow, purposeful way towards something I couldn't see. The strangest part was that some of these people looked familiar. I swear I recognized faces from the forum posts I had read, people who had described experiences identical to mine. They were all there in that corridor, and they all turned to look at me as if they knew I was watching them. When I woke up from that episode, I found something that made my heart stop. There was a business card on my nightstand that definitely wasn't there before. Plain white card with just a phone number written in what looked like dried blood. No name, no address, just those 10 digits staring up at me. I spent the entire day debating whether to call that number. Part of me was terrified of what I might hear on the other end, but another part of me was desperate for answers. I needed to know what was happening to me and why I seemed to be the only person still talking about these experiences. That evening, I finally worked up the courage to dial the number. It rang once, twice, 3 times, and then a voice answered that I recognized immediately. It was my own voice, but older somehow, more tired. The person on the other end said exactly what I knew they would say. "It's time to come with me." I hung up immediately and threw the phone across the room, but I knew it didn't matter. Whatever was happening to me was reaching its conclusion, and I was running out of time to figure out how to stop it. Last night was different from all the others. When the presence appeared, it didn't just stand there or reach toward me. It extended its hand like it was offering to help me up from the bed. The red light was brighter than ever, and through it I could see that corridor again, stretching out behind the figure like a doorway to somewhere else entirely. For the first time in 3 months, I wasn't paralyzed. I could move, I could speak, I could choose what to do next. The presence waited patiently while I sat up in bed and stared at its outstretched hand. I knew that if I took it, whatever was happening to me would be over. The nightmares would stop, but I would become like all those other people who disappeared from the forums. I looked at that hand for what felt like hours, weighing my options. I could keep fighting this thing night after night, never knowing when it might finally take me anyway. Or I could go willingly and find out what was at the end of that dark corridor. That's where I am right now. I'm making this video because tonight, when the presence comes back, I'm going to take its hand. I need to know what happens next, and I need someone to know what happened to me in case I don't come back to tell the story myself. If you ever start experiencing anything like what I've described, don't ignore it like I did at first. Don't assume it's just sleep paralysis or stress. And whatever you do, don't wait 3 months to tell someone about it like I did. Because once this thing decides it wants you, I don't think there's any way to make it stop. I'm scared, but I'm also tired of running from something I don't understand. Maybe the people in that corridor found something worth staying for. Maybe they're not trapped at all, but chose to be there. I guess I'm about to find out. If this is the last video I ever make, thank you for listening to my story. And if you see any videos or posts from my accounts after tonight, don't believe them. Because whatever comes back won't really be me anymore.